it's so fun to go read through that Twitter thread now that it's like, well, clearly it's Final Fantasy 14 and that's the answer. But when we look at MMOs, Final Fantasy 14 being the Cadillac, especially when it comes to controller support, etc. But we're seeing every MMO that's getting announced where there's, I would say I would chalk it up to rumors right now, but I would venture to bet that New World itself is coming to consoles. We just don't have a time frame because Lord of the Rings, which they announced as their next MMO to follow up here in maybe 5 years, will come to consoles. Will be on Xbox and PlayStation. Does WoW have to make that change now, because it's going to be the only one that isn't at some point very, very soon? And when I say soon, within the next 5 years.
Have to is a strong word. There's a lot of games that only run on PC for their entire lifespan and are very happy with their reception. But I do think that the core WoW audience, or anybody who was engaged, past tense, for any length of time, you played a year or two during any expansion, any set of expansions, many of us have been conditioned to believe that you cannot play the game without add-ons. So the number one argument for bringing WoW to consoles is that you cannot play WoW without add-ons. What I will tell you is that beginning in BFA, they began tearing down that wall. Now, that wall was built from both sides. The devs strengthened that wall, the players strengthened that wall. And so it is a big wall, and it has been there a very long time. Yeah. It is a structural part of the community. So it is not like you just drive a bulldozer through it at full speed and then everything's great. Right. But starting in BFA, they supported controller directly, not with add-ons, through a series of console commands. So it was basically like a hidden version of controller support. Mm-hmm. And it was basically something they'd been messing with on the dev side, and they released it, but it was not meant to be easy. And there were all sorts of things that broke. And what it acted as is a framework, maybe for add-ons to pick up and carry the torch or something like that. Then we move into Shadowlands, and they began expanding it a little bit more. And you just see various parts of the UI getting redone. BFA redid the new player experience. Like, at this point, we've started kind of seeing there's some light shining through the wall. Now, with Dragonflight, the new player experience is much better. It's still not as good as like what a new game would do, but for the age of the game, it's pretty great. And the game is playable with controller, and they did all sorts of stuff to update the targeting systems. It's not nearly as powerful as cross hotbar, but if you're going to compare it to 14's controller support, that's wildly unfair, because that's going to make every single MMO that has controller support look like garbage. Final Fantasy 14 is the best controller support in a MMORPG on the market, hands down.
And so, like, Yoshi P specifically doesn't trademark it, so that it could hopefully become the standard for these kind of games. And I think that would be really something special to see. Now, I do want to say and kind of bring in Game Pass as a question to this, being that, like, do you think that they would have announced it coming to Game Pass? I don't think it comes to Game Pass. I think you'll see Game Pass offer perks, just like you see perks offered with Prime Gaming and all these different services, being that it's a subscription-based game. If they did that, I could see a lot of perhaps justified concern and frustration from those who are paying a subscription, both in terms of, imagine if Game Pass covered your subscription to the game, and then all of a sudden you're like, but I also want to support the game, or people feeling like Square Enix might be losing money and leaving money on the table. We have not seen Game Pass pick up the optional sub to ESO. And so I think that essentially if they ever do any kind of integration with any of these services, it's like get a free teleport like they do with PlayStation Plus, right? Like there might be some touch point, but I don't think we're going to see it have any kind of major overhaul to how people play the game. But I'd be up for any of the discussions as we bring up the free trial. Like there's a lot of different, like I think there is a tier that can help get more people playing Final Fantasy 14 that is not yet developed within the current ecosystem. I don't know what that looks like and how fair that is, but it is what it is. What do you think, Chris?
I think that this is, I mean, remember, this is part 1 of 3 for FanFests.
Yeah.
And the Xbox version is going to have the same kind of life cycle where there's going to be multiple parts. Step 1 is just announce it's coming to Xbox. That's really exciting on its own.
Right.
Let people run with that. Get a press cycle, have some goofy ginger crying on the internet. Like, let's just get where that runs its life, then announce the next thing. This is what Xbox is making possible, whatever. I think if it's gonna do anything with Game Pass, I would put it on par with the free trial, the free login weekends. So for people that have been subscribed in the past, they're no longer on a free trial version of the game. They do free login campaigns where they let those people come back, and they have a set number of days to use a set number of hours, and they can come in and they can just re-experience the game and see if it ignites some spark. I assume they know there's this much cost on the servers, there's this much cost on the marketing push, there's this much cost in potential lost revenue, and in trade we have a conversion rate of this, and it results in this many sub dollars. And they run those campaigns from time to time, and I don't think they'd do them unless that was coming out profitably.
Right.
I think you can do the same thing with Game Pass, where you can start to say like, hey, you know, kind of like how when Final Fantasy goes on sale, it goes on sale on PlayStation, PC, and Mac on the same days. And yet the Steam version goes on sale during the Steam sale. It's the same sale, but it's at a different time to better align with that platform. I think your free login campaigns on Xbox would probably be something that maybe gets more of a Game Pass integration or something like that. Maybe they get more hours, or maybe they get. So I think they've already proven in the past that they're pretty good at recognizing when an ecosystem says, hey, we should play a little differently, and this will be received a little better. And I think Xbox would be an ecosystem where they would take a look at that and say, is there something we can do that's a little better in line with how Xbox players consume games?